Alright, so June is almost out, July is almost in, so let's take this opportunity to look at some of the games that are dropping on Steam in July. However, I will point out that I believe by the time this video has gone live, I think the summer sale is probably now in full swing if this is already out, so if that's the case, make sure you check your wish list, and I'm sure I'll be making at least 1 or 2 videos about games that I'm looking forward to from the summer sale, or probably have already picked up depending on when this video goes out. So yeah, it's something to consider, but for now, let's just go ahead and look at some of the new stuff that's dropping next month, starting with a game that is a sequel to a game I thoroughly enjoy when I beat it on the Switch a couple of years back, and that is Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals. Now, Oxenfree 2 is coming out on July 12th, and I've recommended the original on this channel more than a few times, mostly because of its Stranger Things sort of vibe and well-written characters and dialogue. Also, I think it's pretty cool that they actually patched the original game to allow villains from Oxenfree 2 to start randomly appearing on the island in the original title, which is kinda trippy and completely in line with the spooky trail that you unravel in the original. Now, if you've played the original, you know that it's basically a 2D walking simulator of sorts where you kind of walk around with your friends, gradually uncover some spooky stuff that happens on the island that you've taken off to, and depending on the dialogue choices that you make when talking to the characters around you, it can have a big impact on how the story plays out. It has a solid, simple 2D art style, and if you're a big fan of narrative-driven games like I am, you will probably find something to enjoy here, particularly if you're a fan of the supernatural. And suffice it to say, this will be high on my list of must-buys for the month of July. And speaking of spooky games, although I suspect this will be far less harrowing than Oxenfree 2, we have yet another Zombie Survivors dropping on July 13th. Now, personally, I don't like the yet another designation for games like this, because at that point, I feel like you're just completely underselling your game, right? Have some confidence. Who cares if you're a Vampire Survivors clone? If you're a good Vampire Survivors clone, that's what matters. And considering a demo is available for this game and I've tried it out, it is pretty fun so far. I mean, clearly, by their own admission, they're not breaking any crazy new ground here, but it's neat playing a Vampire Survivors-esque top-down game with a zombie survival setting that's more pick-up-and-play arcadey than a more intense survival experience like Project Zomboid or something like that. Again, there's a demo available for this right now, so if you like the simplistic gameplay of a top-down game in the vein of Vampire Survivors, where you essentially just have to move, avoid threats, and gradually get a ton of XP unlocked as you upgrade your abilities and destructive firepower, then I think that yet another Zombie Survivors is worth a look. But if you prefer your battle for survival to be a little bit more dinosaur-oriented, next up we have one of probably the biggest games that's dropping in July, and one that I'm very curious about, if not slightly apprehensive, and that is Capcom's Exoprimal coming on July 14th. Sadly, no, this is not the Dino Crisis reboot a lot of people were hoping for. Rather, Exoprimal is a third-person multiplayer shooter where you have to fight off massive hordes of dinosaurs that literally rain down from the sky, and also deal with a range of other mutated prehistoric threats. Apparently it has a PvPvE component to it, and various exosuits are best suited to different roles like tanking, support, or straight-up damage. At a glance, to me anyways, it looks sort of like an Earth Defense Force with some deeper mechanics and a better layer of polish, and no small amount of camp considering, again, dinosaurs literally rain down from the skies. Now, I'm definitely one of the people who was in that camp that would have preferred to see a Dino Crisis remake from Capcom, but honestly, from what I've seen so far, this does look like it has the potential to just have a lot of bonkers, off-the-wall fun, so I will definitely be looking forward to it when it drops. I may wait for a sale on this one, but we'll see what the reviewers have to say again when it makes its debut on July 14th. Next up, if you're looking for a more chill, walking experience puzzler type of game, we've got Viewfinder coming out on July 18th. Viewfinder looks to be a very unique perspective game where essentially you can take 2D photographs that you've taken and then use them to augment the environment and walk through in a 3D way. And it looks like it's going to explore a range of intriguing visual styles, and it looks like I saw some parts of the game that were styled either after the PS1 graphics or some in Game Boy graphics in spots. On the whole, it has kind of a Witness vibe about it, I guess, but again, this is going to be a relaxed walking simulator with no combat to speak of that I've seen, so if you're a fan of whimsical sort of games that put you in a unique environment and ask you to use its mechanics to look at things in very interesting ways, Viewfinder might be worth a look, and it is a game that has a demo available right now. I've toyed around with it a little bit, seems to perform really well on the Ally at least. I have not tested it on the deck, but given the fact that it doesn't appear to be a super taxing game, I suspect it will run just fine there too. Next up is not a new game, though it is new to the PC, and I actually beat this on the PS5 last year or the year before, I can't remember at this point, but that would be Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which is coming to PC on July 26th. Again, I've already beaten this title, and in the run-up to its release, I actually went back and beat the 2016 Ratchet & Clank reboot. Now, as much as I appreciate Ratchet & Clank and respected what it did with a lot of great 3D platformers, I did not get into that series back in the PS2 era. It was just something that I completely ignored, so I saw the 2016 Ratchet & Clank as kind of a good jumping on point. However, even if you completely ignore the 2016 Ratchet & Clank game and decide you're just going to get started with Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, you will still have a tremendous time, I assure you. Because it is extraordinarily good fun, and it looks like a Pixar film, but that look really isn't just skin deep either. It has really richly written characters, some fun dialogue, legitimately funny moments, and the mechanics are rock solid if you're looking for a third-person shooter slash action platformer, I guess, that's going to make sure to give you plenty of replay value because there's a ton of collectibles in the game and just a lot to see overall. And while from a presentation perspective it might not have been the best looking PS5 game I've ever seen, it's really impressive what they were able to accomplish using that SSD and allowing you to seamlessly transition from one dimension to the next through these rifts that open up. And yeah, I just can't say enough good things about Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Probably not going to be a day one purchase for me because I've already beaten it, but the second it goes on sale, I will almost certainly pick it up just so I can re-explore it the same way I have with, 2018 Spider-Man or more recently Miles Morales. So if you haven't played it before and you have an affinity for 3D platformers in this vein, again, highly recommend it and I think you will have an excellent time with it. Next up, we have a couple of retro throwbacks, starting with Double Dragon Rise of the Dragons, which is coming on July 27th. Now, I'm not especially well versed in Double Dragon lore, so I don't know if this lands on the official timeline of those games, or if it's just kind of a spin-off of sorts, but one of the interesting things that I did glean from the description is that apparently it does have roguelite elements. Now, I'm not sure if that means you're going to have different enemies to deal with on each run, or if that means every time you die you have to start all the way from the beginning, which would be kind of brutal, but I guess would certainly, show that it has retro sensibilities. Also, in addition to the 4 starter characters that you have, you can unlock 9 additional characters, so if you're a fan of Double Dragon or beat-em-ups in general, this might be worth a look. And finally, this last one, apologies, normally I do these in chronological order, but it looks like this is coming out on July 13th, not near the end of the month like I thought, but it is another retro throwback that kind of looks like Mega Man, and that is Gravity Circuit, dropping again on July 13th. Again, this is an action platformer in the vein of Mega Man, it looks like, but your character looks to be highly customizable and weirdly a little bit like Shredder. But if you like 2D action where you bust up a bunch of robots and unlock a range of new abilities, this will probably be up your alley. It also looks to have everything you'd expect from the genre, with crispy pixel art, tricky boss battles, and a boppy chiptune soundtrack. There's a demo out now that I haven't had a chance to mess around with yet, but at least initially I can say it looks like they've nailed the movement here, so if you're a retro fan or, again, an aging millennial like me who grew up cutting your teeth in the 8-bit era, it's probably worth at least downloading that demo to get a feel for what Gravity Circuit's all about. Alright, so that's it for this video. Again, as these go, not a comprehensive list of everything that's coming to PC next month, rather just a selection of games that I thought looked like they would be fun and probably play well on the deck and, I guess, Ally at this point. So, what about you? Are there any games that I left off the list that you think should have been included, or something you're just really looking forward to? If so, please let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks so much for your time, have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.